Welcome to Not Stopping for Directions, a podcast for and about dads, especially those parenting children with behavioral health challenges. I'm your host, Michael Carmen, and this podcast is brought to you by the Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children. The content included should not take the place of clinical or medical advice and are purely points of discussion for you to consider during your parenting journey. All right, welcome to our fifth outing on Not Stopping for Directions. Our guest this time is Vaughn Nebbitt of Family and Children's Place. At the time of recording, we are coming off of Father's Day weekend, Juneteenth, Pride, a whole lot of stuff going on this past weekend. So we're very happy to have Vaughn joining us after that long weekend. So Vaughn, thank you for joining us.
Well, I appreciate you having me here, Mike.
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about your role at Family and Children's Place?
Sure, no problem. Family and Children's Place is a long-standing community resource that looks to help families heal and really stop the abuse that goes on within our community. We look to do that by offering resources, support, and services in different areas. My specific area is in early childhood services, and we have two specific programs that we work with our early childhood program, in which we look to provide those skills necessary for our parents to be lifelong advocates and empower them to really be those lifelong educators for their children.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm here in Louisville, so certainly statewide, you all have a lot of name recognition and have been around for a good while and thought of well in the community for sure. How has COVID impacted the services you provide?
Well, it has caused some adjustments with the COVID virus, Mike. One of the things that has been the most difficult and challenging, especially for my programs, has been that with our Head Start program, Greater Louisville Head Start, we've operated in nothing but the crisis mode as we began our program in 2020 and the country shut down shortly thereafter. And so we really had to go into crisis mode of how we're going to make the adjustments to still provide services to our families, as well as still how to start up and ramp up services in a very shut down society.
Wow. Yeah. So that's from a timing perspective, just I'm sure as you ramp up a new program, you're kind of prepared for a set of challenges and contingencies, and we may have to adjust for this or that. Certainly a global pandemic probably didn't enter into the planning stages of the conversation there. So quite a lot of adjustment, I imagine.
It didn't, but I think one of the things that made it easy for us, especially with my programs, is that with both of our early childhood programs, we have a home-based option. And so really what we ended up having to do is how do we still provide those services at home without actually being in the home? So being able to make those adjustments to a virtual world was the biggest, adjustment that we had to make for both of our programs. Gotcha.
So did you bump up against families who didn't have good computer access or cell phone access, or did you find that most folks were able to kind of plug in from a cyber aspect, I guess?
Well, we attacked it as if no one had anything. And so what we looked to do is with the additional funding that we were able to receive from the government, from the CARES funding or the ARP, the American Rescue Plan funding, we're able to provide those families that are in our program with the ability to have either hotspots if they have computers, laptops if necessary, as well as any means of really supporting their child's development that they need at home.
Wow. So you really did think of everything to kind of get in there as safely as you could, and if they didn't have access, you provided them access. So that's outstanding. And your focus, Vaughn, is early childhood, and of course, this program I do in partnership with Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children, and we wanted to do something that really reached out to fathers, and of course, KPFC has been around for a long time, and a lot of families are involved in their programming. But dads are sometimes trickier to get into the mix, if you will. I think they're not as readily available to be in person, or perhaps as comfortable as moms with talking about feelings and things like that. What kind of support do you find that fathers need when parenting very young children, perhaps for the first time?
I think the support that's needed is avenues like this program, given the opportunity for fathers to actually hear other fathers and dads talk about their experiences and to talk about their challenges and some of their successes. I think that what we find more than anything is that we have more similarities than differences. And
Right.
so being able to share those stories, regardless of backgrounds, is important. I think one of the things that makes it special for me, Mike, is that my background in my education is in individual and family development. So
Mhm.
I went to school at the University of Kentucky to understand how people develop over a lifespan. And so my focus really got tailored into early childhood as I began to focus on that beginning stages of development. Right. And I think that despite all of the education that I received and the classes that I took, I still wasn't prepared to be the father that I needed to be for my children because it's a hands-on learning experience.
Right, right. Um, Excellent, Vaughn. I appreciate that insight. So are there specific challenges you find in getting fathers to participate in programs and services that you provide? And I'll just kind of share, with KPFC, we've attacked this in many ways. And to put it in context, I'm not a full-time employee of that organization. I was many years ago. But we would try different things to get dads involved. And at the time I was employed there full time, we did a dad's retreat, which was very successful and powerful, but limited numbers, right? I mean, you can only accommodate so many folks in a retreat setting. And then when they asked me to do something here recently with dads a couple of years back, we tried to do these discussion groups online. And this was even pre-COVID, but just so we could kind of cast a wide net. And we did find, participation. We'd have one or two here and there, but just couldn't get the groups together that we wanted. The thinking for the podcast is, well, this is kind of a non-threatening, somebody can be on a treadmill and pull this up and listen and see if it clicks with them, or they hear something that maybe helps them out. But I'm curious about your experience with that. I know you work with parents of very young kids. Is it hard to get the dads kind of into the room, if you will, it would be that cyber or in person?
Well, Mike, I think there's several factors that play into that. I think you look at the relationship between the mother and the father. You look at the relationship that the father may have with the child themselves. And you also have to look at just that individual father's capability and understanding of their role and how important it is in the children's lives. And so I think that the biggest part of that is being intentional in reaching fathers. I've worked in this field for many years in different capacities. And one of the things that I am proud of being able to speak on is a fatherhood initiative program that I was a part of in Lexington when I worked at another agency. And what that program did was it targeted specific fathers and being able to grow their understanding of their role, and then being able to grow that program from those targeted fathers. And so I think that's something that we're looking to bring to the program that we do now with our Head Start program. And we're hoping that with a small group of fathers, being able to grow that into something larger.
Gotcha. Excellent. So you shared with us a moment ago that you're a father yourself. How does being a father kind of inform the work that you do?
I mean, it plays a factor in everything because I find that what I do at home affects what I do at work, as well as what I do at work affects what I've done at home. The biggest part of what I've achieved is I used to be an educator in the classroom as well. So I started this journey of early childhood as a teacher. And I find myself taking the lessons that I learned in the classrooms home with me, but also taking that patience that I've learned at home and using that in the classroom. And so being able to take what I've learned across boards and being able to grow that understanding and knowledge of what it takes to be a father or to be a supporter of fathers in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that this is work you kind of the flip side of that question? Is this work you bring home with you, or once you walk in that door and you're coming home, or maybe you work from home like a lot of folks do, but when you're home, do you feel like you're able to kind of put that aside and be present, or do you carry that with you somewhat?
Well, it's a little of both, Mike. It's funny. My children are older now. I have a son that's in college, and my daughter, she's in middle school, and
Okay.
so they're a little older than the group that I usually work with our early childhood programs. But I do know that I always used to tell people that I cannot give 100% of myself to my children in the classroom and have nothing left for my children at home. But
Right.
at the same time, I realized that there are lessons that I've learned in the classroom that I took home with me. One was specifically with my son. We lived in an apartment complex where to get to our apartment, you could go on either side of the steps. And he took off out of my hand, and he ran off to the other side. And I remember saying to him a lesson that I was teaching my children in the classroom, which is my job is to keep you safe from harm. I can't do my job if you're out of my sight. So
Mm.
if you come back to me, I'll be able to see that you're safe and secure. And that's a lesson that we teach our children in the classroom with Head Start. And so being able to use that lesson in the classroom and then use it at home, my son was able to say, "Oh, okay, that makes sense, Dad. I'll come back."
Excellent. Vaughn, and this is granted, this is kind of a big question. Do you think it's getting easier or more difficult to be a father? And I ask that just for context. On the one hand, it's more acceptable for men to discuss their feelings and emotions. It's getting there, right? I mean, there was a time when it was absolutely, that's not what a man does. We don't do, and it's becoming more and more of a norm, even in workplaces. Folks talk about their mental health, their feelings, their emotions. It's becoming just a more kind world in that aspect. But then, we've got all these other issues going on in the world with violence and substance abuse. So, what are some of your thoughts on that? Is it more challenging than ever to be a father, or what do you think?
I don't think it's ever easy to be a father, Mike, in the past, the present, or in the future. I
Right.
think there are going to be challenges that we face as parents, as fathers, that are going to be different for different generation of parents. I think that, however, given that our families are made up differently today, more so than they ever have been before, that being a father is one in which it's able for us to embrace bigger. I think that in the past, we were, as fathers, as men, we were restricted to a certain role. I
Sure.
remember watching TV with my daughter, and we laughed at the number of fathers that stayed outside of the labor room when it came time for the mothers to have babies. But
Right.
yet, when she asked me about it, I was like, I was in the labor room with both of you and your brother. I was right there firsthand, ready to cut the umbilical cord, do the things that to show you that I want to be a part of your lives. And I think that's the most important aspect of being a father, is being intentionally a part of the children's lives, not being a part of the mother's life, not having the best of relationships with the mother, but being intentional, wanting
Right.
to be there and be a part of what they do.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I always like to kind of wrap up with kind of a light or fun question. And so as a father, what are some traditions that you've had or things that you through the years do for fun with your kids?
And I think that is the best question, is things that we do for fun for my children. And it's funny because we do things together as a family, but
Right.
then there are things that we do separately based off of their own individual development and likes. So for my son, I have been his coach for almost every sport he's ever played. Heaven help me, he's had that father for a coach, or that coach for a father.
Hmm.
And so I've coached him in basketball, football, track, baseball. And for my daughter, it's different. For her, it's more about the performing arts. So I support her in what she does in dance, acting, drama, singing.
Hmm.
I really support them in different ways, but the same level of support. And the fun that we have together is so varied. We love playing board games together. My daughter and I just finished up a new game of Uno that we had never played before. It was called Uno Flip. Crazy.
Okay.
But one thing that we're doing recently that we've enjoyed together, Mike, is
Hmm.
that I'm a collector. I
Okay.
have to collect something. And so recently we started collecting something called Funko Pops.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you're familiar with that or
Oh
not.
well, now hold on. Hold on. I've got Mr. Rogers right here.
That is a classic. Now, I am a collector to the point that I do not take them out of boxes.
Okay.
So what we have here is we have Willie Nelson. I don't
Yeah.
know if you can see that.
Yeah.
And then exciting one I have here, we have Venom. a
Wow.
very big Venom,
Yeah.
that I was able to get because of my Father's Day gift. So tying it back to you saying that this weekend was Father's Day,
Right.
this is how we spend Father's Day, is picking out pops for dad.
Fun. That's outstanding. I love it. I love it. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today, specifically on issues with dads. Yeah, I ask people that watch this and enjoy it or get something out of it, that the best thing they can do for us is to share this on their social media and give us a like and give us a share, and make sure other dads are able to see what we're talking about, and hopefully they get something out of it. I think they will. Vaughn,
I hope so as well.
yeah, you have a great evening, and keep up the great work you're doing. We appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you, Mike. And you have a great day as well.
All right.